Hey everyone, how are you? Welcome to the episode 6 of Django Mastery series, and in this episode we are going to refactor our forms with Django Form classes. This is going to result in a better and cleaner code. In this episode what we are going to do is we are going to refactor our code submission feature using Django's built-in form. Django Form is basically a class and it will simplify and clean up our code to manage the forms which we are going to have in our web application. Now, if you remember, in the last episode, we were able to add some codes to a database, right? And to add the codes, we had a form in our home application, we had a templates, and in the templates, we have codes.html, right? In the codes.html, we are having a form, and in this form, there is an input, and using this input, a user can submit a code and get it saved in the database, and that code will be visible in our web page. So let me just run the server to show you what we have as of now. So to run the Django development server, we are going to type python 3 manage.py run server. Once the server is running, let us go back to the browser and let us try to run our web page. And now you can see we have this hello message. That's our home page. Let us go to the codes page. And now you can see we have added few codes. These are like 4 codes we added in the last video. And if you just keep refreshing it, you will see that we are getting this random code out of the codes we are having. Now we have this form, right? In the form, we have a label, enter your code, and we have an input section where we can fill our code and then we can submit this code. Let us try it once. Let us say the code is keep working. Okay, let us say that's our code as of now and submit this. And now you will see that this keep working code got added to our list, and that's basically getting saved to the database. That's what we have as of now. Now the thing is, this form is being created by us as an HTML tag, right? And we are managing this form in our template file, in the HTML file. Now you know that a form is something using which a user is going to interact with our web page. So this is something which is being controlled by the user, right? They will enter the values, and now a user can enter any value, right? And that is why we have something called as form validation, right? We validate our form data before we actually submit or create something using that data in our server. Now this validation part and everything is being handled by us in the template file. Let me get back to the code editor and let me show you what I mean by this. If you see the form as of now, we are saying that the type is going to be text and this is required. If you want the form to be submitted, you will have to enter this value, right? Now all these things are being managed by us, and this is just a very small form, a very small example. In reality, when you are building a web application, the form is going to be big. The form is going to have a lot of validations, a lot of logics, and when we are creating this form in HTML, it is a little bit hard to manage. But we have a facility, we have a feature in Django called as Django Forms. So basically using Django Form, which is actually a class, just like we have models, which is nothing but a class, we have forms which can centrally manage all the forms we are going to have in our web application. So as of now, we are having just one form. We are going to create a Django Form class, and that will help us to manage our complete form logic in our web application centrally at one place. We can add built-in validations logic, and we can automatically escape unsafe input which is coming from a user, as well as it is going to prepare us for some more advanced patterns like model forms. Model forms is a type of Django form which is going to link the models and the forms together. So that is something which is planned for the next episode. For now, if you will again come back to the browser and let us try to enter some value. Let us say we add some spaces and then we just enter some value. Okay, let's add a quote, have a great day, right? And then let's add some more spaces, right? Now if you will submit this, you will see that your data is submitted, and now you can see this quote is added, right? Now let's get back to the code editor and let us see what's happening. So basically your form is submitted, and now your views function is going to run, and what this is going to do is it is going to access the data submitted code and create a value in the database. But if you will see the data directly in the database, then you will find that this data have a great day is having some spaces in the left, some spaces in the right. I mean, these kind of things which happens when a user is entering their data. They might add some space in the beginning or in the end, and they will not even realize that. And if we are not able to handle these kind of things, then we are going to have this data in our database, which is not good, right? Now here comes Django Forms. Django Forms can help us to avoid these kind of small failures, and these kind of built-in validations are already there and you don't need to do it. So let us see how we can do it, how we can create a Django form. Go to the home folder and right click and click on new file and create a file forms.py. We are going to create our Django forms in this forms.py file. First of all, import forms from Django. So from Django, import forms. Now let us create a form class. Let us say class quote form. So we are going to create a form. Right now we have a form, right? We have this templates, and in the templates we have this quotes.html. This form, what it is doing is it is fetching the quotes data from the user, and then it is going to submit it, and our server is going to process the information. So this is basically a quotes form, right? So let us give it a good name, class quote form, and that is going to have a parent class forms.form. Now this is telling us that this quote form is a kind of Django form. Now what do we want in our form? We want a field that is going to accept a quote from the user. So we are going to say quote is equal to forms dot what kind of data do you want from this quote or from the user as a quote. So we are going to say it's a char field, basically something which can store or which can fetch or which can accept a text data or string data. It is going to have a label which will be equal to enter a quote, and this is also going to have something called as widget, and I'm going to tell you what this widget is. So basically widget is equal to forms dot text area. Okay, and save this, and it should be forms and not form. And now you have a quote form. Basically this form is something we can render in our template. I will show you how. And this form is having a field quote. This is going to accept a quote, and for this quote we are having a label. Now once you go back to the quotes.html, you see that we are creating a label and then this input. So we are managing this part, the label and the input, directly in our form class. For this quote, this is the label, enter a quote, or let's keep it as enter your quote. The widget is telling me that basically how do you want the form field to appear in your HTML page. So basically you know that in a char field, or basically for a text field, we have input in HTML, and we can set the type of input as text, right? As you can see what we have as of now. Apart from this, we have another way to accept a text data, which is a tag called as text area, right? This is another way to accept a text data. So that is what I'm going to show you here. That is why I am putting this widget is equal to forms.textArea. It means I want this code to be a text area, so that user get a big space to enter their code if they have to write some bigger codes, right? So now our form is ready. We can add a lots and lots of things in our forms, but again, let's keep it simple. Let's keep it in a way to understand about it, and we are going to do the advanced things in later episodes. Now the next thing is, right now what we have is, we have this quotes.html, right? Let's delete this completely. We don't want this form. We are going to use this form in our HTML page, quotes.html. But the thing is, you know how we send a data in a template, right? To send a data in a template, we have to send it as a dictionary, right? That you can see in the views file. That's something we have already done. So basically what we have to do is, we have to send an instance of this form to the quotes.html so that it can render that instance in its HTML template, and that's basically a user can see. Because right now if you go to the browser and try to go to the page again, you will see that we do not have the form. That's completely fine. Let's go back to the code editor and let's go to views.py file. In the views.py file, what we are going to have is, we are first going to import the form we have created. So we have this model imported. Below this you can say from dot forms import quote form. So now we have this quote form in our views.py file. Now what we can do is, we can say go to this quotes function view, and right now what we are sending is, we are sending the quote as random quote. We are sending all the quotes which is stored in quotes list. We are also going to send the form itself, an instance of the form. So first of all, we need to create an instance of the form, right? So what we can do is, we can say before this data, we can say form is equal to quote form. So now we have a form, we have an instance of the form, right? Let us send this form in the data, and let us say data quote underscore form is equal to form. So what we are doing as of now is, we are saying we are sending this dictionary to quotes.html, and in the dictionary there is a field quote form which is going to store the value as form. This form is an instance of quote form. Now go to your quotes.html file, and now you might be wondering, how do I render this form in my HTML page? So to render this form, what you will have to do is, okay, let's do one thing. Let's actually restore this form so that I can tell you what's the change you need to do. This form tag will be there with the method as post. This CSRF token will be there, and this submit button will be there, right? What we are trying to manage is, we are trying to manage this label and the input. Basically all the input fields we are trying to manage. So you can delete these two data, get rid of it. And now you can see we have this code form, right? To access this code form, what you will have to do is, you will have to just access it like a variable. So I can say double curly brace open, double curly brace close. Inside this I will enter this particular code form. Now when you go back to your browser and try to refresh the page, you will see that you have this form. You have this form, you have the label, and you have this text area, right? Now you can increase the size of the text area, and you will see that this label is going along with this. That's because if you go back to your code editor again and look at your form, you will find that in the form we have said that for this quote, which is a text field, this is the label. Now we don't need to manage the label, right? Now the thing is, guys, if you remove this widget that is equal to forms.textArea and then save the form and come back to your browser again, you will find that now this is a normal input. This input is having the type as text. you can even right click and inspect, and you will see that you have a form, right? You have the CSRF token, and then you have a div. It automatically creates a div. This div is going to create your label and your input, which is basically the data you have in your form, in your Django form. In this, you have a label and you have an input. The label is having this text and the input type is text. Name is quote, required, it is set as required, and the ID is ID underscore quote. So all these things are already there in your input, in your label, and you don't have to manage all these things. So it is quite easy to create such a form and display it and now use it. Now you can make use of this form, and let us put some random quote, let us say random quote, and hit submit, and this is just going to add it in your data. But as of now, we have to do some more changes. Let us make our code compatible with all the best practices. So let us go back to the code editor, and in the code editor, first of all, let us put this form, code form, as p. So I can say code form dot as underscore p. Save this, go back to your browser again and try to refresh the page, and let us see what's the change. The main change you will see that is, let's inspect it, and you will see that instead of a div, now this is within the p tag, right? So if you don't want it within a p tag, then you can just leave it empty. Go to your code editor again, and you can leave this as empty, no, without a dot, as p. But if you want it within a p tag, then this is how you can make it. Now let us go back to the views.py, and I actually prefer it to leave it as leave it within a div tag as of now. So I will just keep it as code form. Now go to views.py and let us do some changes in our codes function based view. First of all, what you need to do is you need to say, okay, once this is a post request, whenever it is a post request, I would say form is equal to code form. Let's create a code form, and in this code form, I will submit the data which I am getting from my form. Now you know that the form is having these data which is within the code form, right? It has a label, it has an input. Now I don't need to manage to accept the data which the user is sending me. Like right now I'm doing it, right? I'm saying submitted code is equal to request.POST.get the value of code. I don't need to manage this for now. What I can do is I can say form is equal to code form, and within this I can say request.post. So now this form is basically an instance of code form, and this code form is going to get the value from here. We don't need to manage this now. We don't need to fetch the value now, because this form is going to manage this thing, because it is compatible with this. This is exactly, the code form is exactly the same form we are having here, right? So we are having a form which is equal to code form, and the data is coming from the request.post, basically whatever data the user is going to send using our form. Next thing is we are going to say, before we actually create something in the data, we are going to say if form dot is underscore valid. If the form is valid, that is, it is going to do the validations in the form data. This data is going to be validated, the data in the request.post. So basically right now we have just one data, and that data is nothing but the code itself. So it is going to get validated, and once the form is valid, if the form is valid, then we are going to say quote is equal to form dot cleaned underscore data quote. And now you can see we are not fetching the quote from the request, we are fetching the quote from the form dot cleaned data. So now we will get a data which is clean. We are not going to have any extra spaces, and the form is first of all validated, so we are not going to have any unsafe values in our data. Next is we are going to say quote.objects.create, and quote is equal to this quote. Let us say this is submitted quote. Now we are able to create a quote. But what happens if this is a get request and not a post request? So in this case, what will happen is we are just going to say else. We are going to say else to this if. That is, if this is not a post request, I'm going to say form is equal to code form, and the data is going to be empty. And that's the only change we need to do. Now you can go back to your browser, and in the browser what you can do is you can just first of all refresh the page. Let us say the quote is be yourself. Submit this, and before we submit this, let us add some spaces. Let us add some space in the beginning, in the end, and now submit this. And now you will see that the data is submitted, and after the data is submitted, your quote is here, right? The quote is here, right? It is not gone. That's the latest data which you have. And now you see your quote is added here. It is also added in the database as well. I can go back to the code editor and show you the data, and this time the data is not having any extra spaces. That is because the data be yourself is cleaned. We are having a clean data, right? So if we have a clean data, then in this case this is not going to have anything extra, no extra spaces, right? So this is how we can create a form in Django and use the form in a template and access the form data. First of all, we are going to validate the form after accessing the data, and then we are going to fetch the inputs from the form, and then we can do whatever we want using that input. So that's one of the demonstration of how we can use Django forms, but this is a very small step towards Django forms. We now know what is the Django form class and why we use it. So most of the things we are doing is using Python, so we don't need to manage a lot of HTML, and that is why we use it. We have a lot of validations, some built-in validations which is already there in our Django forms, and we can centrally manage all our forms in our web page or in our website. Our website can have 20, 2500 of forms. I don't want to manage all those forms in my HTML page. I can do it centrally in this forms.py file. So if you want to do any change, if you want to change it from input type text to text area, you can just add a widget, right? I've already shown you how we can add a widget. You also know how to create and use a forms.form, right? We also know how to have validations in our form class. You can see that to validate your form data, you can say if form.is valid, then your form data is validated. And now you can clean your data as well. You can fetch your data in clean format. And we have seen how to simplify our views.py using the form.isValid, and how to render our form safely using form.as_p. And if you don't use as_p, it is going to render it within the div tag. If you are using as_p, it is going to render the input, the labels within the p tag. So I think that's it for this episode, guys. We now know how to use Django forms. In the next episode, our focus will be how to use model form. Now this model form is a special kind of Django form, and it helps us to link DB models to a Django form. So guys, again, that's it for this particular episode. I hope you like this episode. I hope you are enjoying the Django Mastery series. And if you are doing it, then make sure that you hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed to the channel as of now, you can do it now. You can subscribe to the channel now, because we are going to have a lots and lots of different and interesting tutorials, projects, and a lot of things coming in. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for watching this episode, guys.